Om yato vacho nivartonte aprapya manasa saha ananda brahmana vidvan nabhiveti kutas janeti. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. That indivisible one from which the mind and speech fall back, unable to describe or comprehend it. The one who realizes the bliss of that Brahman destroys doubt and fear forever. And so it is. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. So with that opening sloka from Shankara, we bid you a fair morning from Hawaii, where it's early, and we have these weekends that tick by, don't we? They seem to come so quickly. Time passes in that illusory fashion it's so well known for in Vedanta and other darshanas of India. But here we are at the beginning of another weekend with its satsang and God blogs this morning, and with its Sunday class tomorrow, concluding class on mantra. That's been an 8 or 9 class series that should go up on YouTube pretty quickly. So you can look back on it. And then tomorrow's class, as I mentioned, and then in the middle of the week, there are those beautiful classes given by the assistant teachers of SRV that have been very good and helping to fill in all the details of the studies that we undergo during the week, particularly in these great scriptures, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna being foremost among them in SRV Loka, and then the Upanishads probably coming next, and the Bhagavad Gita among them. Prasthanatrayam, that's called. Prasthanatrayam is the triple landmark of scriptural history, it's called. It means the Brahma Sutras, the Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita. These three are considered to be prominent to India and the scriptures. We haven't tackled the Brahma Sutras yet. They're rather like koans in Sanskrit, very difficult to understand without a teacher, and very abstruse and specifically non-dual. They really go to the very heart of the Advaita Vedanta. But there's so much more that has to be contemplated as we make our way toward that height, and also when we reach it. There's worship to do, there's study, there's mantra to recite, and there's work as worship, labor as love, as Vivekananda called it. Basically, probably put in the easiest way to understand it, it's the 4 yogas that we cherish: Jnanam and Bhakti, the 2 wings of the bird, which are wisdom and devotion, and then meditation, called Dhyan Yoga, or more popularly, maybe Raja Yoga, the yoga of meditation, traditionally called Ashtanga, or 8-limbed, so that we don't confuse it with physical yoga. And then the Karma Yoga, which is keeping us apart all week from seeing one another in the Sangha, as I've noticed. So many of the hours of our day spent in making a living. And so people have written in questions, and there's an ongoing conversation for years about how to balance spiritual life with daily life in the world. And it's quite a balancing act. which the householder, as they're called, has to do. Ramakrishna said the householder is like the man with a huge weight on his back who stops and watches the wedding processional go by. The others are free of that weight, the monastics. So everyone's watching that wedding processional march by. In spiritual life means the beauties of ongoing practice and realization, peace and bliss, all those things that we cherish. But the householders, he says, has to do that with the weight of making a living, raising children, and so forth at the same time. So that's a great challenge. And as I say, we're always going on and on about that, how to balance that out. At least half the questions I receive during the week from people are about that. And sometimes they come in the form of complaints because Maya tends to take over the world of name and form and time and space, and the effects that come from it tend to take over so much. And it's very difficult to keep one's nose above water and lead a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings, as the Upanishads tell us to do. So these weekends that's part of the point of these kinds of meetings, to have darshan, to have satsang, to have Jnana Yoga classes. And then those are together with our special family. Our Sangha is our very special family. And then we have our blood family, our ancestors and so forth, that we've been born with and are beginning to look quizzically at sometimes if we want to be born in a more realized and less attached way, less bound way. If freedom is the watchword, as it was for Swami Vivekananda, because that's his favorite word in English, was freedom. And we know he passed into Mahasamadhi on the 4th of July, so as if to say to us that we needed to have a better understanding of freedom than political or the freedom of a mere vacation or of relative freedom, but it had to understand this ultimate freedom, which is the very nature of our soul. So all of these things become topics to discuss and ruminate upon. Contemplation, if you read the God blogs this weekend, if you have, that I posted during the week, you'll see that some of them have pointed the focus at the various practices that one must engage in order to burn those karmas that are about. Basically, a daily life of practice can burn the karmas of relativity that are gathered day to day. That's called mortar and pestle karma. Sometimes in India, mortar and pestle karma means that we're just grinding away each day at work and so forth. And it's bound to cause some sort of conflict somewhere in your life when things are being ground at, destroyed. So that karma surfaces day to day and can be taken care of by your daily practices, meditation and study of scripture, contemplation, work as worship, mantra recitation. So all of those things become these tools in which we do daily. But when we intensify them, we build that bonfire higher, so that, as Sri Ramakrishna said, you can even throw a banana tree into it and it will burn up there. So you have to be able to have an intense fire of austerity, and that's going to take some time. So it's going to be difficult for the householders to mount such a fire, to destroy karmas from past transgressions and past lifetimes that may be still lurking there. So all of these things we take seriously in spiritual life. And that one thing that's missing, you might notice as you go around the world and see people engaged in various activities, both earthly and spiritual, is sadhana. It's a daily sadhana. The lack of daily sadhana is the rust of households, Lord Buddha said. And the lack of recitation of scripture is the rust of monasteries. So he tells us to be like a great guard at a city gate, always on vigil, day to day, and keeping that fire burning. And then making sure to throw in all of those things that are don't have any use anymore, that may be weights. As Vivekananda said to one person who asked him the way, he said, just take everything that you worry about and brood about, and everything that's a weight that you don't want in your life, and tie them up in a bundle and throw them into the ocean. So he made it sound quite simple. But we know that this must be done in order to live a life of freedom, and we must keep at it too. So one of the things that comes to us then in the form of helping us understand and to intensify our spiritual life and to clarify our minds are these questions where we get to, these periods where we get to ask queries and questions about spiritual life. So on this weekend then of satsangs, God blogs, and Jnana Yoga class, I open up this satsang for questions from people along these lines or any other line. It could be what you're studying, what you're reading, you can share that, and this will naturally lead to some very good back and forth communion. I know some of you are communicating with each other in the Sangha over email, and I find that to be very good. So that you get different looks at these teachings and the experiences of other people in their challenges and trials in spiritual life. So that kind of communication is really excellent. Always check those things with guru, with tradition, with scripture, with the seers, and so forth, is really the rule of thumb. So who has something to share then, or to ask to start off this satsang session?
Namaste, Babaji.
Namaste. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I was wondering if you could elucidate for us the subtle differences between the witness and the Antaryami.
Well, there are several words that for Brahman. Brahman and Atman are the two main words that we know about. And people, when they hear of our tradition, the teachings of our tradition, sometimes ask that question, what's the difference between Brahman and Atman? But then when you get into the study of the philosophy, you find out there are even more words in Sanskrit that point to an underlying reality, like the kutastha, or these words that you've just mentioned too. Antaryami, probably it's the difference between that would be that it refers specifically to God with form. That is, the Antaryami within your heart is your ishtam, the inner ruler immortal seated in your heart, it's called. So that's a very personal or ultra personal thing, and something that the devotees cherish as their own ishtam. For some it might be Buddha, for others it might be the Christ, and for others it could be Krishna, depending on the religion and the locale. And all of these great divine personalities, also called Ishvara, are what is meant by this word Antaryami. Antar means inner. So this is something that you would encounter in a relationship when you look deep into your heart. Like the chant we've been having at the middle of the week, meditate upon the Lord as thine own self seated in your heart, who appears to you as the universe, but who's the essence of all living beings. So that's in form would be the Antaryami. And the witness consciousness can also be that, but the Sakshi Bhutam, as it is in Sanskrit, it has more to do with the self becoming witness itself. That is, what is it that it witnesses are the Bhutas, the various beings and the various phenomena that the Bhutas are going through on the earth plane. So it can be taken to a higher reckoning, and you can then begin to witness things that go on in deeper worlds or lokas or akashas. And you could witness things in dream from a more conscious state. But when they bring that phrase forward, they do mean that it's a conscious state, not something that you would just simply watch go by and not have your awareness intact when you see it. Just like people, sort of a random flow of things that doesn't get to the point of what the origin of the flow is all about, it, where it originates from and how it ends. Like pondering the dreamlike nature of phenomena, finding that it's originless, essentially rises and falls all the time, if you want to go more towards the Buddhist way of looking at it. So that really provides two good benefits for the seeker. One is to come to know that the phenomena is always flowing and changing and moving, and number two, that it's always rising and falling naturally, just as a matter of course. And then three, maybe you could say, would be that there's a difference between what is being observed and the observer itself. When that comes about, then, and that can even happen in a dream. All of a sudden, you can see that the dream you're having is pretty much produced by yourself. So you're able to have a moment like that and then wake yourself up. And so they've used that as an example too of, in the swapna state, of how to do that in the jagrat state, that is the state of waking, so that you attempt to be awake and fully conscious in every moment while you're awake. And so you're not walking around totally blind, as some of the poems and songs of India sing. Oh, mind, you're fully awake and walking around, but we're walking around blind to everything. So having your consciousness intact when you witness things is going to be necessary if you're going to understand the true meaning of that phrase, witness consciousness. So that's where you man a station. You would take up a station and very much operate from it, hopefully hold it. But a vision of your Antaryami, that's an independent entity that you're trying to merge with and commune with. And you can see the difference, although maybe subtle and maybe even intermingling sometimes, is the difference between the formless reality that you are, and then the Ishtam, or the chosen ideal that is in your heart, is in your mind and heart complex. Swami Vivekananda would sometimes be so bold as to say that Ishvara is also a conception of the human mind, so that he would be taking the person towards his highest witness consciousness. That's called Advaita, or non-duality, as you approach it. And then you'd see that all things are then soluble into Brahman. As Sri Ramakrishna said, even Ishvara will become soluble into Brahman. Probably the only difference between Ishvara and other things is that it can become soluble into Brahman, but it can still be held in the memory of billions of souls from cycle of time to cycle of time, whereas most other things will get forgotten. Sometimes he compared the Ishvara to a huge iceberg in the ocean that had existed so time that the ice had actually turned solid, like into crystal, and the sun couldn't melt it. And every other iceberg in the ocean, then when the sun reached its zenith, that they would melt away when the season changed, as it were. So Ishvara tends to persist in our minds, and it too has different forms, as we just mentioned, that beings who follow different forms of Ishvara will then be followers of different religions. And that's how religions are formed from Ishvara. That's the second highest way of looking at it. There are four ways of looking at it. The first highest way is that it's eternal. It's always there. And they themselves, the Ishvara forms, know this. But other beings then look to them for the highest guide. And then they look at it more like all of this is coming from the central pillar of Ishvara. In the Kano Upanishad and other great scriptures, you have this pillar of light, of which everything is revolving around. And those things that are revolving around the pillar closer are more light-filled, more conscious. And those things that are orbiting around the pillar more at a distance are less filled with light and less sentient. But that Ishvara is seen as the central pillar of light in that case. So it's rather like the get to the Father through the Son kind of idea, that you would have this open doorway into formlessness by taking the highest form which the human mind can comprehend. To quote Vivekananda, Ishvara is the highest form which the human mind can comprehend. But then beyond the mind's comprehension, and which I just chanted actually to start the satsang, was that one Brahman that mind and speech cannot fathom or describe. Then that's what's beyond the ordinary mind, or beyond the mind. It reaches up deep into the formless level of consciousness, where there are no boundaries and no divisions. Oh, then you can't call it a name anymore. You have to designate it by a word like samadhi, or satori, or nirvana. Then when they see it as a form, say, oh, there it is. There's Krishna. There's Vishnu. There's Buddha. There's Jesus. But then when it's beyond the mind, they look at it and they can't give it a name. Oh, I'm in samadhi. So it all comes down to I then, the supreme I. It's a state, now not a personality anymore. So Vivekananda cherished that. He said, between principles and personalities, the God is a principle, not a personality. So ultimately, and of course, this could be argued by people who prefer dualism or even qualified non-dualism, but for those who are fully availed of the wisdom of non-duality, then they will opine differently. They'll say that everything will be soluble into Brahman because they've had that experience of samadhi. Yes.
Abhinaya texted a question that follows up on this line of expression very well. He says, in what part is religion considered as a collective memory of the past, and in what part of it to be divine? How would you define divinity of religion in this context?
Well, we could start out by saying we know what it isn't. And that's irreligion. And so if a religion, according to Vivekananda, helps the soul to reach these higher states that we've just been talking about, whether it's worship of God with form, because religion is best known for that. Philosophy, at least in India, is better known for taking people towards the formless. So that's where you get the bhakti and jnana kind of contrast. And I think they're complementary in Vedanta, especially in Ramakrishna Vedanta, is that we think of the two wings of the bird in this case, that jnana, wisdom, connects with bhakti and guards against sentimentality that can breed there. Too much dependence upon the Savior. People are tripping over the Savior in order to get to the light, the ocean of light. And the Savior should be an open door. The Savior should be an exemplar, my teacher used to say. And not a Savior, actually. Our great souls in India are all exemplars, he said, not saviors. So, because the soul has to save itself, that means it will see the light and go towards it. So, if religion does that, then it can be called a true instrument of the Lord and Mother of the universe. But otherwise, it's called irreligion. And the effects of that, people look at it, and it isn't difficult to see when religion begins to act as a barrier towards people's freedom. When it gets mixed up, for instance, with things like war and politics and the eternal money making, as Vivekananda called it. So this is why the devotees have to guard against that fall of religion. If they're born in an age, like they say the Kali Yuga is, where most of the religions are in a state of falling, then you're going to have to go and search, like we've had to do in another country, in another religion, to find something that is taking us back towards the source, a journey to the source of our being. Something that would explain the art of involution to us, instead of leaving us high and dry with only evolution and only the physical side of things to be considered. If that's physics, and physics is fine in its own place, but the minute you start to encounter things like metaphysics or something that has to do with otherworldly affairs, internal life, not just an external life, then you're going to have a philosophy that supports it. And that's where religion and philosophy connect with each other and also clear each other, because the bhakti side of it, the devotional side of it, will keep the jnana from becoming too dry and too intellectual, which is a problem with intellectuals, is that philosophy then also runs the risk of being an occupation to make money, or something to argue about, rather than something that declares truth and leaves you free to transcend the world of commerce and welfare and so forth. You can then specialize at enlightenment. That's going to be your university. Vedanta will be your university, and it'll be teaching courses like the 4 yogas, and your degree will be the attaining of realization or enlightenment, and the test of that will be your freedom, how free you are or how bound you are. So all of that causes a marked difference between religion and irreligion. So you could call religion then truly divine if it's taking people towards that highest golden shore, as I've heard it said. I make you one promise, I'll meet you all on God's golden shore. I heard that line the other day. As far as the collective humanity and what it talks about, then collective humanity in this world, we see it popular, not being very popular. Remember my guru, when he arrived in the West, he would say, "Whoa, I see here that the guru is not popular, but the church has taken its place." So he kind of wondered about the problem of not having a personal instructor or a guru, which is huge, of course, in India. And Vivekananda used to emphasize that point. And of course, he had the greatest guru as his teacher, so he'd be one to know. That he used to say that you could go to the top of the Himalayas or the Caucasus, or you could go to the depths of the ocean, could go to the Sahara Desert, or walk across the Mojave Desert. Wherever you go, higher, lower, in between, you'll not discover anything there unless you take a guru. So a guru will show you how to uncover the essence in all of these locations and in these locales, and get the most out of life, even here in the physical body. So that would then change the run of the collective mind, which is, according to Lord Buddha, even 2,500 years ago, is got its eyes fixed upon rebirth and on stirring up treasures on earth, thinking that it can take it with them after death. So this round of birth and death and ignorance has been brought forward as a specific and special teaching of Mother India. You don't find that accented, sometimes even mentioned in other religions. They're just thinking about this one lifetime alone. So Vedanta and yoga, and Tantra, Buddhism, they give us this new look, wide, diverse look at the many options, the many different varieties of living a life of the spirit, even here on earth, and how to do it in a state of jivan mukti. That is, how to live free as you do it, knowing that freedom is rather than something to be sought after only. Which is why Holy Mother said you should see God, not just seek God, but you should see God. So open up your eyes and see that divine reality in, through, and behind everything, and do whatever it takes to uncover that mystery. So that would be the true divinity of religion. And as I said, best mixed with a high-minded philosophy that knows about the secret of formlessness. That's another thing that you don't find in many religions. Isn't it true that they're talking much about formlessness? because heaven is a form, for one thing. And that's not what they mean in India when they're talking about formlessness. They're talking about the formlessness of the self that had all names and forms and worlds and things that are in worlds stripped away from it, so that they could just see the light that it consists of, see the light in itself. That divine Shakti, she takes all beings towards their highest emancipation, Father of Yoga says. But as she does, she removes name and form from them. So if you follow the yoga then of the authentic yoga, which is the great practice, the greatest of all practices in the world, then you'll see that that the Father of Yoga himself knows about this stripping away of name and form, and then meditating on what's left afterwards, after that great transformation happens, is this form of consciousness, which is not a void, as people think of it here in the West, because the only kind of formlessness that occurs to people here is by looking up in space. It's called astronomy. So then they see something formless, but that's still just in the physical realm. The formlessness of the spirit is far different from that. It's filled with peace and bliss and love, and divine experiences abound in it, as we can see by the samadhis of Sri Ramakrishna just recently had while he was in the body, and other great souls that have had those experiences. So it's good we consider this so that we can be exponents, proponents of the neo-Vedanta that Vivekananda has brought to us. It's really uplifting religion, and not just Indian religion, but Vedanta says that it can make a Buddhist a better Buddhist, a Jew a better Jew, a Christian a better Christian, because of the non-denominational stance that it takes, especially at its non-dual level. So that's what we have available to us. So it's for the highest good of the self and for the highest good of the world. That's the motto of the Ramakrishna order that Swamiji created. Atmano mokshartam jagadhitaya cha. That's how he put it in Sanskrit. For the realization of the self and for the highest good of all beings. Notice the order. You don't go and help other beings until you get that highest realization yourself. Not spiritually. And that's one thing that can cause religion to fall, is it thinks that it can take a whole country and put it under its care. When there are people in that country that are not Christians, and that are not Muslim or not Buddhist, you have to, if you follow the universal light, then you have to make sure that at the same time you're thinking all religions are one and the same, with the same essence in them. And you also have to specify. And that's where philosophy comes in and saves religion from that kind of thinking. So at some point, somebody had to come with, like Vivekananda, with something as broad and deep and truly universal as the Vedanta, and give it to people, and then watch them grow each in their own way, each in their own religion, and reach the goal. Something that can remove the obstacles from every religious walk. And not just the karmas of individuals either. So I'm supposed to be reading these questions maybe, huh? It says here, it's very, very small, but I have another question. Nirajan was asking about the difference between the witness and the Antaryami. How can you understand the witness in the light of knower, the object of knowledge, and the act of knowing being one? How can there be a witness if these are one? Well, that's the answer is in the question. That's because you understand it from the standpoint of being one. That's the only way it can happen. So the question is really answering itself. It's not how can you understand the witness in the light of knower, object of knowledge, and act of knowing, is that you already know that these three separate are keeping you from that non-dual realization, because it's the same with your food, right? Food, the eating of the food and the act of taking the food are also all supposed to be one, according to Sri Krishna in the Gita. And so knowledge is a kind of food. Then you could jump to that realization, and then put together again your consciousness with that, so that you're not falling into the confusion of dualities, dvandva mohena, or maybe you're not yet connecting the triputis, but that's why they're there. There's lots of triple teachings are there. Three worlds and three mantras of Om and so forth. So because those are being introduced to the mind, and the mind is entertaining them, then that proves that the mind, when it's unified, that all of those things have come from the mind, and they also exist in the mind. And they've just a matter of consciousness losing its connection and not being able to hold that state of oneness. I remember walking with my older brother, who's passed now, some years ago on the beach at night, and we were looking at the stars and talking about philosophy. And he said, I really think that there's a way that when you die that you can hold your consciousness together. And he hadn't read the philosophy as I had yet, but I encouraged him along that line and told him that there were great seers in the world that had thought that same way and had come to know that based on the fact that consciousness is already one, that is, it's indivisible, homogeneous state of awareness and a self-illumined. That is, it doesn't require anything outside to illuminate, like the sun doesn't require anything to shine, but the moon borrows its light. So that would be the difference between the mind and the Atman, is that it's self-illumined. So I encouraged him to think that way based on the fact that it was already a fact. So that's why these questions are good to ponder, and they bring together certain elements. But when you answer them, the answer sometimes is right there within the question. And it all has to do with that state of moksha, which is always at hand. It's not something that you've ever lost or that can never be gained back. It's always something that's ever present. And when you focus on it, it is. Strangely enough, when you forget it, it's not. So you have to keep your focus on it. That's the third eye. See. Om utkramanti stitam vapi punjanam. Krishna says in the Gita, vimuda nanupashanti Atma Jnana Chakshushaha. Jnana Chakshushaha means the single eye of wisdom. So those beings never see the Lord, who are veiled in darkness, vimudda. But they see who possess the eye of wisdom, the Jnana Chakshu. So everyone has that eye of wisdom, but some have not opened it yet. To paraphrase Lord Buddha, that those who are striving to be awake are already awakened, and the others are still asleep to their true nature. So that's where Advaita came along and said, if you will but focus on it, it will be, because it's already there. So it's a matter of removing clouds or curtains from in front of it, with the foreknowledge that that what exists always exists, and it's there behind those veils, rather than guessing, maybe does the light exist, or maybe taking the veils to be real instead of what's behind them. So one stays posited, ensconced in that position of non-duality once one hears it, and that way quickly burns away the coverings of Maya, and quickly focuses beyond the upadis, or the coverings that are present there as soon as you enter into the body in this world. Going to have to deal with them. So that's the best way of dealing with them, to keep them thin. It's the greatest and highest strain of philosophy that the world has ever known is the Advaita Vedanta, to quote Vivekananda. Yes, Chris.
Namaste, Babaji. I had a question about the pronunciation of the bijam harim when it's chanted. It almost sounds like as if the M is almost left off, or if it's said really quick, or if it's almost like haraim, or if it's hrim, or if the M is, yeah, it's just, I had a question about that pronunciation when it's in the chants on harim.
Well, there will be different ways of chanting it. There's probably as many different ways as there are vocal cords, but basically, even some schools turn the M into an ng, hring. Same with the word or bijam om. Like I just said it really quick, but there's dirgha pranava. Dirgha pranava means you say om once, very, very long. So you spend a long time on the A. It rolls down the palate, the throat, off the tongue. The U is there, holds for a long time. The lips close. Then the M ends the whole thing. That's why they think of it as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, because A creates everything, U preserves it, and then M destroys it or dissolves it. So that's how the Trinity, I'm speaking about Antaryami being inside the formless, how the Trinity is inside the recitation of every recitation of Om that the disciple or the seeker does. So in that case, the M would last a very long time, and you're almost talking about life. You have a birth, and then you have life, and then you have a passing. So that's also under the auspice of AUM. And so just like Om anyway, Hrim is like that. With Hrim, though, in the mother scriptures, you take it apart as Ha, Ra, E, M. And those signify the 24 or 36 cosmic principles, just like Om does when you take it apart to A, U, and M. Ha, Ra, E, and then M at the end brings it all to dissolution. Hrim, hrim. So if you were to touch the tip of your tongue to the top of your palate quickly, as if you were going to roll it, but not a Spanish roll, which has many touches, but just hrim, 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 om, hrim. The duration of how long you hold it is dependent on, of course, the situation or the time. If you're doing it just to chant the one bijam, like Dirgha Pranava, they call it, then of course you give full attention to all parts. But if you're just doing your mantra and it's, on your beads or on your hand, and it's just going by in rounds, and then, then it can go very quickly. Sometimes you see when they mutter the mantra, it's going and watch the beads in the hand, it's going very quickly. I remember we asked our founder, Lex Hickson, about that at one time. He said it just really depends on the mood of your meditation that day. Sometimes you can say the mantra really quick, 108 really quick. Sometimes you feel like just saying one every half minute and then going on to the next one, and you feel very slow, like going very slow with the mantra. And either one of those can have their benefit depending on that particular meditation you're having. May good betide all, may love come unto all, may all see the face of truth and be fortified by the armor of devotion, love, pure knowledge, pure wisdom. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat Om.